We gather today for Convocation to celebrate the beginning of a new school year. The chapel provides a wonderful place for us to gather as a community, and it is here where you will commune with a wide variety of speakers over the course of the year. This morning is no exception, as you will hear from one of your peers, one of your teachers, and your head of school. Additionally, you'll have the chance to recognize and congratulate the accomplishments of your classmates. In this year where we are focusing on being more patient and mindful of how we live our lives, I want to take a brief moment to reflect on our culture and the society we live in currently. In your lifetimes, technology has altered the way we live our lives. From email to cell phones and the internet, it is expected that you stay connected digitally. As a result of this constant need to remain available, our lives have become more hurried, more anxious, and more stressful. With the internet has come an ability to gain access to information as never before. This information age, while one of the most exciting times educationally and culturally, has happened upon us with such rapidity that we've had little time to adjust and adapt to the new norm. What has resulted is a culture characterized by impatience and instant gratification. Captive to the rush of time, we have little chance to ponder, digest, and reflect before reacting. At this time of new beginnings, I invite you, as we come together in chapel today and throughout the year, to use this time for reflection and contemplation. I would also like to challenge us all to spend time thinking about what is most important to us and to focus our efforts and energy toward those goals in a more concentrated way so that we may react more meaningfully as we live our lives. Kaylee Daniels is in her senior year at Westover. As an active member of the Westover community, she is part of the Invest in Girls program, was the second head of Dorcas last year, is currently the head of the Women's Rights Club, and the editor-in-chief of The Whip. In addition to being a two-season varsity athlete in volleyball and basketball, Kaylee has also been a hostess for admissions, a ringer in the handbell ensemble, active with Amnesty International, and a member of the community service team. Beyond Westover, Kaylee has taken part in Grab the Torch for the last 2 summers, a leadership and philanthropy and ethics camp in which students hear from various speakers, entrepreneurs, and leaders of organizations in order to gain a wider understanding of what it means to be philanthropic. She also attended a 3-day Girl Up Summit. Girl Up is a United Nations foundation designed to raise awareness and funds for girls' education worldwide. In addition to being on the honor roll for the past 3 years, Kaylee received the Mount Holyoke Award last year at the Orchard Ceremony. It is my pleasure to introduce Kaylee as our student convocation speaker this year.
Here we are again, back in chapel, sad that summer is ending, but glad to be back with our friends, and filled with the anticipation of a new school year. With the new year comes new faces, new classes, new challenges, and new experiences. For our new students, everything is different, exciting and overwhelming all at the same time. We are all so glad you are now part of our Westover family. For everyone else, this is a new year with both old and new. Old friends, a familiar teacher or advisor, a new dorm room or lounge on a new floor, and new classes. And for the seniors, this year will be filled with many highs and hopefully very few lows. Either way, it will definitely be bittersweet. This past July, my family and I traveled to Rome for a much-needed vacation. The final weeks before we were to leave were chaos. My mom was confirming our flights and accommodations, getting the dog set for the kennel, and demanding that we all identify 2 things that we wanted to do or see the most. My sister was tearing her room apart trying to select the perfect outfit for each day and activity. I was leafing through the 3 different travel guides we bought, and my dad wanted nothing to do with any of it. When we finally arrived at JFK and were about to board the plane, I thought to myself, wow, after all that chaos, here we are, and it all worked out. When we arrived at the airport in Rome, we were all overtaken with excitement and fatigue. We found our luggage and went to look for the driver who was to take us to our apartment. At almost the same time, we looked at the sedan he was driving, and I could tell we were all thinking, we're going to fit 5 people plus our luggage in there. 10 minutes later, later, the driver got into the car, and while he was out of breath from trying to stack the luggage 3 different ways, we were on our way. I thought to myself, here we go, and it was all okay. As we drove bleary-eyed down the highway, my family caught our first glimpses of the city we would call home for the next 2 weeks. After about an hour and a half of waiting in traffic and weaving through the endless cobblestone side streets, we arrived at our apartment. It was 9 a.m. Rome time, 3 a.m. body time. The building manager that was to meet us with the apartment keys was nowhere to be found. After offering us a tour of the city for 50 euros, the driver left us and our luggage on the narrow street in front of our locked apartment building. My mom angrily pulled out her cell phone and searched for the rental office number, and we grew tired and cranky, not wanting anything to do with each other. An hour later, the key was delivered and we moved into our air-conditioned apartment. As I finally lay down to sleep, I thought I never thought we would get here, but as I settled in, it was all okay. Later that evening, we ventured out for a walk to explore the area near our apartment. Thrilled to finally be on vacation, we admired the quaint streets, immediately noticed how many churches we were passing, read the menus of the sidewalk cafes, and just took in the city. Soon, however, we realized we were quite some distance from where we started. Fighting off the growing fatigue, we became slightly panicked and started weaving our way through the crowds of soccer fans watching the World Cup at outdoor cafes, found a place for a snack, and slowly oriented ourselves in the direction of our apartment. The panic faded, and it was all okay. Now, how does my family vacation relate to Westover and the year we are starting off this morning? Well, just like my family in a new city for 2 weeks, we are taking on so many new challenges and may feel and become a bit lost at times. We may feel so tired that we cannot imagine ever getting up in time for assembly in the morning, and we may feel a bit panicked when we walk into the dining hall and see so many new faces. Most of us can probably remember finding ourselves in the wrong classrooms during the first week of freshman year, or reading our schedules wrong and showing up to our first Tuesday class instead of Mondays. If you're like me, you may have even gotten lost in the LBD trying to find a bookroom, or ended up sitting at the junior tables instead of the freshman tables at the first meal at sports camp. New classes are also daunting each year, and you may not know what to expect from your teachers or how you need to study for your first common errors quiz or chemistry test. Seniors will constantly be thinking about colleges and their future careers and may have no idea what we're going to do. Like my family on vacation, though, we will find our way and everything will be okay. So whether it's a freshman making new friends and adjusting to a different school, a sophomore taking on AP Computer Science, a junior stressing over APs and SATs, or a senior applying to college, it will be okay. We will figure it out. If there is one lesson that I continue to learn here at Westover, it is that no matter how confusing or unpleasant things may seem at the moment, it will be okay. We will all figure it out eventually. If you walk into physics instead of biology on your first day of class, it will be okay. You will remember the correct classroom the next time. If you did not do so well in that English paper, you will learn from your mistakes and redeem yourself on the next one. If you go to a hospital on career day because you've always wanted to be a doctor and find out that you didn't ultimately like the experience, it will be okay. You now know more about what interests you and what doesn't. I know it is easier said than done, but making mistakes and being confused is a good thing. You may not believe me now, but eventually all the confusion will work itself out and lead to something great, no matter what that may be. If my family had not experienced a few rocky moments and taken a few wrong turns, we may never have appreciated all the good times we did have, or seen a certain part of the city, or had the best pizza and gelato of the trip. We may all take a few wrong turns or feel terrified of possibly losing our way, but these moments allow us to see new things, have experiences we can grow from, and ultimately discover more about ourselves than we ever would have if we hadn't taken a detour. So remember, it's going to be okay, we will figure it out, and we'll be even more prepared for what lies ahead in our lives. Thank you.
Catherine Alvey has been a member of the Westover community for the past 12 years. Although she is currently the language department chair, ESL coordinator, and Latin teacher, Catherine also served as a dorm parent for 7 years. She graduated from the University of Maine with a BA in Latin and history, and then went on to complete her master's in classical languages at Tulane University. Prior to Westover, Catherine taught for 8 years at the South Portland High School in South Portland, Maine. making this her 20th year of teaching. Catherine is currently the chair of the Scrivo International Latin Composition Contest, which our students compete in each year. She has also run many cultural trips for our students to Europe in past years. Beyond Westover, Catherine has spent her summers since 1986 working at the Lobster House, a restaurant in Maine, where the main course, you guessed it, is lobster. Catherine has a love and talent for baking, and you should really try to enjoy her treats at some point this year. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Catherine Albee as this year's faculty convocation.
I'm really honored to be speaking to all of you this morning at this traditional start to the academic year. The story that I'm about to tell you comes from a conversation that I had with Lou Bicey a few years ago. She was a few weeks into her freshman year and was struggling to find her groove in her classes. The readings were too long, the material was too difficult. And as I began to offer support and guidance to her, let's set up a study schedule. Have you talked this with your teachers? She quickly interrupted me and said, Catherine, you can't possibly understand how hard this is for me. You're a teacher. Her reaction seemed counterintuitive to me, so I asked her to explain this statement. You always did well in school, she said. Everything came easily to you, and that's why you became a teacher. I thought about her reaction for a bit and realized that her rationale could not have been further from the truth. I was a good student in my K through 12 years. I did my work, I met my commitments, I didn't really rock the boat. I liked school well enough, but I wouldn't have considered myself a standout. In fact, I was reserved and somewhat withdrawn, so much that I was voted quietest of my senior class. I didn't participate in class discussions very much, and I rarely raised my hand to participate. But there was one subject that was the exception: math. I was a math kid. Through and through, math was my thing. Back in my day, the SAT-2s were called achievement tests. And in my opinion, there was no better way to spend a Saturday morning than to take a standardized math test. I scored extraordinarily well on the math portion of the SAT and on both levels of the achievement tests. I doubled up in my math classes. I stayed after school to do a day's work. I tutored classmates. I competed on our school's math team. Still really one of the fondest memories of my high school experience. Algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, I loved them all. I headed off to college intending to major in mathematics with the ultimate goal of becoming a math professor at the university level. The idea of spending my days surrounded by other people who love math, well, that seemed like a dream job to me. I landed my freshman year in college, having been placed into both an accelerated calculus program reserved for the very strongest math students in the freshman class and our university honors program. That accelerated calculus class was the most difficult academic task I had undertaken to date. There were maybe 10 of us in the course with the most wonderful mathematics professor. Charlie was really the perfect instructor. He pushed us, he challenged us, he nurtured us without holding our hands. We struggled daily, but smiled every minute of the journey. I was more proud of myself having completed that one course than I had been after receiving my high school diploma. At the end of the semester, I was sad to hear that we have a different professor for the spring term. We'll call him Professor Frank. After spending my winter break with my family, I returned to campus with a mild illness that soon led me to a visit to the campus health center. I was prescribed proper medication and 3 days of bed rest. This was long before email, so I did the responsible things. I left messages on the voicemail of all my professors informing them of my excused absence, and asked my roommate to seek out friends and classmates for copies of syllabi. My other courses seemed to be starting out rather slowly that first week, but this second semester of accelerated calc hit the ground running. Curled up on my bed, I did my best to keep up with the class. I was able to complete much of that first week of work on my own, but as expected with any absence from class, there were problems I couldn't answer. Once my 3 days of bed rest were up, I was glad to return to my normal routine. I attended my calculus course and was proud that I was able to follow Professor Frank's instruction even after having missed a few days of lecture. I did still have those few equations that were posing some difficulty, so I did what you all would do. I went to my professor's office hours, the collegiate pseudo-equivalent of conference. Armed with my book, my notebook, pencil, and an eagerness to finally solve those problems, I waltzed into Professor Frank's office with a smile, enthusiastically anticipating finding solutions alongside my new professor. We went over the first few equations, and with a bit of guidance, we breezed through nearly all of them. I have one more question, I said, glad to have nearly caught up with my classmates. I only get this far in number 7, and I'm not sure what to do next. Professor Frank leaned forward to look at my notes, and then leaned back to face me. Any idiot could figure that out, he said. He quickly wrote a few numbers on my paper, giving me the tools I needed to finish that last problem. Now, in all fairness, looking back with some clarity a few years later, I can quite honestly say that Professor Frank did not intend to call me an idiot. I'm quite sure that his words were meant to encourage me, to tell me that the problem was easier than I thought, that I had the ability to solve it. Unfortunately, that's not what I immediately took away from our conversation. All I heard was that he had called me an idiot. Now, what should I have done after this encounter? I should have talked to my advisor. I should have confronted Professor Frank. I should have used that interaction as motivation for me to prove him wrong. But I did none of those things. Instead, I let that one word consume me. I let that one word rob me of the confidence I had in the direction I thought my life would take. The rest of my freshman year was pretty much a disaster. I skipped classes, I didn't keep up with my assignments. I bombed that second semester calculus course, and I can't say that I performed particularly well in any of my other classes either. In fact, my grades were so low that I was not invited back to the honors program at the university. I returned for my sophomore year knowing that I didn't want to take another math course and decided that I would go in another direction entirely. English. That makes sense, right? If I lacked ability in one discipline, perhaps I could be successful in its opposite. Yes, my 19-year-old brain thought that English was the opposite of math. Knowing that I need to show proficiency in a second language to complete the requirements for a degree in English, I pored over the course book to find a suitable offering. I had taken 4 years of French in high school and thought it was time to try something different. I thought that Spanish would be a lot like French. I asked my roommate for her advice, and she provided a response that would, in a matter of seconds, also change the course of my life. Take Latin, she said. It's easy and you don't have to speak it. I followed her advice. Neither of these things was necessarily true, but nonetheless, I fell head over heels in love with this language. It was hard work, but it appealed to the problem solver in me. And even though my Latin courses weren't conversational in nature, I found myself contributing to class discussions and asking questions willingly, much like I had in my math courses. After only a year of studying Latin, I declared it as my major. Because I began my study of Latin so late in my college career, I had to commit to a 5th year of undergraduate study. Courses in classical and medieval history fitted well with my language courses, so I was able to complete my undergraduate work with that double major in Latin and history, and with an award for being the outstanding graduating senior in the history department. I had realized that sharing my love of language was my path. After earning a master's degree in teaching in Maine for 8 years, I came to Westover, where in some sort of ironic serendipity, my classroom is on math court. So what are you meant to take away from all of this? Is my message a mixed one? Perhaps. 4 things for you. Number 1, stand up for yourself. Be your own best advocate. Ask for help. Don't let one solitary word from one solitary person determine your direction, your worth, your value, or your intelligence. Number 2, work hard. Don't make excuses for yourself. A struggle with one subject, one course, one chapter, or one problem should not cause struggle in every other aspect of your life. Number 3, if you fail at number 1 and number 2, realize that failure is not necessarily permanent. Keep trying to find your success and don't be disappointed if it winds up being in a place you never expected. Number 4, your teachers were once students too, and we really do understand your struggles and your triumphs much more than you may really realize. Some of the best lessons are the ones that aren't written in our plan books. In the words of Thomas Paine, the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. I love the man that can smile in trouble, that can gather strength from distress and grow. Thank you.
Ann Polina has been head of school at Westover for the last 17 years and was one of the earliest advocates of programs encouraging girls in the study of math and science. She graduated from Fordham University with a BA in mathematics and earned her master's in mathematical scholarship from NYU. She continues to teach a class in AP/BC calculus, and Westover career has spanned years of teaching and dedication to girls' education. Ann is a very strong proponent of girls' education, gender equity, women's leadership, and excellence in schools. She has written articles, produced videos, and is a sought-after expert in the educational field, asked to speak frequently around the country. She is on the board of directors of a number of regional and national groups that promote women's education. She is the past president of the board of directors of the Headmistresses Association of the East, and also past president of the Board of Trustees of the National Coalition of Girls' Schools. She is on the Commission of Independent Schools for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Mariendo Initiative, and instrumental in the founding of the Mariendo Girls' School in Rwanda. Ann is parent to 2 Westover graduates, Emily in 2000 and Elizabeth in 2003, and it's my pleasure to have her speak today.
Good morning, everybody. I want to start my speech by saying that Haley, Catherine, and I really didn't talk about our talks today, but you're going to see a common theme. Last week, my husband said to me in the early morning hours, I had the dream last night. I didn't have to ask him what dream he was talking about because he too is a teacher, a university professor for the last 35 years. But I urged him to tell me about it. I was walking down a totally unfamiliar corridor, opening doors, looking for the class I was going to teach. Several people gave me advice, but no one could tell me exactly where to go. The hour got later and later, but I still couldn't find my way to my class. It may surprise you that faculty members, the faculty members sitting in back of me in front of you, are still a little bit uneasy and nervous at the start of the school year. I would bet that most of the people behind me have had similar dreams. I know I have. Walking into a classroom and being introduced and told that instead of my prepared lecture in calculus, I was expected to give an in-depth talk on the Krebs cycle, or the use of metaphor in what we did. All of us today are facing the unknown. That's the point. For the students, especially if they're new students, this is a grand experiment. Completely new faces, new places, new ideas. But all of us are facing the new and untried. Now you're saying I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior, I'm a senior. How will it be different for me? Faculty have the same feelings, new faces, new class dynamics, maybe new colleagues in their classes. This will be a year of change for our school, and change is hard. We are conditioned, in fact, to seek and find comfort in the familiar. I am here today to remind us that what we pay in the loss of comfort in times of change, we reap in the excitement of new possibilities. As Ben has just mentioned, our year this year will have a focus on patience and mindfulness, qualities we really desperately need in the hectic world in which we live. And I will admit, after talking to them, I reread my remarks somewhat sheepishly and wondered if I should be titling them The Joy of Stress. Because I do want to focus a little bit on the positives of uncertainty and disruption in our lives. And I will forecast my conclusion. This message is not at odds at all with living in the moment and facing every day reflectively. Mary Catherine Bates has written, "We are all called to join in a dance whose steps we learn along the way." All called to join in a dance whose steps we learn along the way. And that is the state of our lives. We cannot stop change from happening, but we have a choice. We can allow fear and caution to dominate, and we can try to stand on the sidelines, or we can exuberantly join the dance, maybe stumbling at first, maybe needing to rely on those around us to teach us the steps, certainly hoping that hands will reach out to steady us on our way. When we face change, it is strange and disruptive. We console ourselves by finding the familiar part of the new experience. So this is a new grade or even a new school, but much is familiar. I know I've been successful in English and history, so I'll avoid math and language as much as I can. You may be saying to yourself. It is easier for all of us to shrink from those parts, all of those parts of any new experience that are really different. And by the way, we're biologically programmed to do just that. I recently read a Stanford study that indicated that 93% of the thoughts that we have on any given day are actually thoughts we've had before. It's 93%. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the 7%. Of the new, the different, the uncomfortable, the uncertain, the disruptive, all of the things that we never envisioned, and all of the things that are an inescapable part of new experience and of change. And I'm wishing for all of us the courage to embrace and the heart to enjoy these things. Take a class in a subject you've never studied before, be bold, and choose a class you're not good at. Make a friend with somebody who doesn't look like your kind of person. Try something that scares you, public speaking, running for office, maybe just raising your hand. Join the dance. Learn the steps along the way. I will share with you 7 things I do when I find myself facing the completely familiar and uncomfortable, which I am this year. First, don't be afraid to admit you are in uncharted territory and it feels unnerving, difficult, distressing. Don't pretend that everything is okay, but believe it will be. Listen critically. Listen to the positive, productive voices of the people around you, and try to avoid falling in with the naysayers and the complaining negative voices. I need to say, all of us do this. It is so easy to spend time playing what people call misery poker. Right? So your friend walks into your room and says, "I got like 2 tests of paper this week, what am I going to do?" And you say, "I know, I have 2 tests of paper to a lab report." Right? So poker. I'll see your 2 tests of paper and I'll give you a lab report. We do it. We also, the adult version of this is that I have 2 tests of paper to grade this week. Response is, "I know, and I have 7 meetings." You know, as I say, it's so easy to do, and honestly, it just lines us up. It lines us all up and gets us much into or away from that whole sense of patience and mindfulness that we're trying to achieve. The last thing you did is the third tip that I gave you: laugh. Just laugh. When things get really tough, sometimes that is the only response that you can have. It's best to do this with your friends, but I am going to tell you that even laughing at your fears by yourself behind a closed door helps. Fourth, again, you've heard this from both Kaylee and from Catherine already, be willing to say oops. When you're in a place of change, when you're surrounded by the unfamiliar, you will make mistakes. They will be impossible to avoid, so just make them your friends. Your response to your mistakes, not your mistakes themselves, are what will define you. And keep that in mind. The fifth is a kind of a strange one: peripheral vision. Those of you who've been here long enough may have heard Mr. Hunker telling the tale about the gorilla, about looking the gorilla in the eye. Short version, don't do it. familiarity that really is the most productive. Sixth is magic. I was recently told that the word abracadabra, translated, means it will be created with my words. I've since learned that that's a somewhat dubious translation, but I can't shake the sense of power that I felt in that translation. I will create the course of my life. I'm being willing to learn what I can, being willing to learn the unfamiliar steps along the way. My mindful presence in my own life is the magic. And that leads me to the conclusion that I promised you was coming, is live in the moment. Because change is sometimes frightening, we're sometimes afraid to look ahead. And the temptation is to always look behind, determined to believe in the good old days. The danger is that if we become too enamored with the past, we fail to build on the excitement that change can offer us in the present. This is the link I promised you to the year of mindfulness. Living fully in the present is the best way to be excited about, to embrace change. So those are my tips, and I will close with one wish for all of us. I wish us a year of great dancing. In the sun, in the rain, in the here and now, stumbling over the steps from time to time, but dancing together, always together, because that's our strength. Thank you.
Character education of its students is woven into every aspect of the daily life of the school community, not just in the classroom and in chapel, but on its playing fields, gymnasium courts, along the dormitory corridors, and in the dining hall, in student government debates, and in club meeting discussions, and excursions beyond the walls of the school, and in every exchange of ideas that takes place among faculty, staff, and students. The Margaret Love Stevens Chair for Moral and Ethical Education is awarded each year to a member of Westover's faculty and staff nominated by students, selected by a vote of the faculty and staff, on the basis of the person's efforts to enhance the moral and ethical education of Westover's students, of youth. The overwhelming support of this year's recipient demonstrates the respect of our community for her integrity and commitment to the ideal of a moral education. Students wrote the following about this year's recipient. She has managed to make us conscious of our global responsibility and the moral necessity of such leadership. She is the main reason why Westover citizens and future leaders. She is one of the strongest and most inspiring women that I have had the honor of getting to know. She gave me a chance to start over at Westover. I needed a change, and she offered me the most gracious and wonderful opportunity, and I hope I will prove worth the risk. She always looks for the best in people. It's not that she doesn't see faults, but she knows that celebrating the good that people do is the best way to teach morality. Three words that appeared over and over in both student and faculty comments were perseverance, inspiration, and optimism. And faculty comments included the following. Everything she does, from the most casual conversations to the grand events, to the really hard conversations, comes from the ethical place of justice, fairness, and compassion. She has often pointed out that many faculty have been nominated for this prize. And many adults are doing commendable things precisely because of her and the tone she has set. She has shown us in her work that she values and augments our students' moral and ethical education. She calls on us all, students and faculty, to bring our very best to the table, and I most often see our best placed there before her. It is at those times that I'm deeply impressed and aware that this community is not what it is by accident. Because we have a strong leader who is coaxing us gently but firmly toward our better selves. It's my great pleasure to present the Margaret Love Stevens Chair for Moral and Ethical Education, Anne Lehman.
Those are beautiful words. Thank you. Nothing could please me more. If I have to pick one thing that I want my life to stand for, this is thank you.
Please stand as we sing Jerusalem. Please be seated. I will now read the honor roll for those girls who earned high honors with distinction the entire year last year. Girls, please stand when I call your name and remain standing. Please hold your applause until the end. Alicia Belcher. Brianna Bergen. Julia Cooper. Kaylee Daniels. Kira DeSimone. Claire Donovan. Nola Iwasaki. Brianna Jones.
Jenny Kim, Catherine Kenton, Leanne Kolba, Sophia Lee, Karen Lee, Kristen McLean, Samantha Masasi, Sarah Navius, Olivia Pesh, Rachel Pomerantz, Minju Shin, Marie Shirashi, Sophia Strayetz, Thank you. Sorry, Sophia. Jim Coe, Grace Yule, Tiffany Billiker, and Isabella Yu. Congratulations.
And we close with some special awards. And I would ask these students to come forward, please. The Westover Scholastic Award goes to the returning student who has the highest average for the preceding year, regardless of class. This year, the award goes to Nola Yusaki. The Sexton Walker Scholarship Award goes to a returning student who, in the opinion of the faculty and administration, has made excellent use of her abilities and the opportunities available to her, and who possesses the character, the spirit, and the will to persevere in reaching her goals. This year's award winner is Sarah Hassan. Scholarship Award goes to one of the 4 top-ranking seniors. Besides being one of the outstanding students in her class academically, other criteria for the award are based upon her personal qualities and contribution to school life. This year, the award goes to Leanne Kolba. Our last award is the Elizabeth M. and Joseph L. Mulder Scholarship Award, which goes to the student who has attended Westover for at least 2 years. She must be capable academically and possess personal qualities such as enthusiasm for life and learning, concern for others, self-discipline, resiliency, and a sense of fairness. This year, the award goes to Zulma Dunn. Our program will recess out of the recessional beginning of